Hey community, this is Dr. Hugh, and today what I want to go over is bioidentical hormones, and I also want to go over the safety of bioidentical hormones, especially for women, because at the end of the day, women have been basically completely mismanaged in my viewpoint when it comes to hormones and when it comes to God-given bioidentical hormones. My wife is 46 years old and we have her on progesterone, DHEA, and pregnenolone, and she is very youthful, and these hormones are very, very critical. So I'm going to go over the safety, because at the end of the day, there's a risk for everything, and you have to determine if what is your risk tolerance. Are you willing to try bioidentical hormones to feel better, to decrease your symptoms, to be more youthful, to save brain function and preserve bone? So everything at the end of the day has its risk tolerance. Walking across the street has a risk tolerance. But what this webinar is going to be about is giving you the truthful information, not scare tactics, so you can actually determine if bioidentical hormones is something that you'd be interested in doing and restoring youthfulness. Okay, so here we have the safety, and one thing I just want to kind of go over is life expectancy in today's society. Obviously, life expectancy has gone up tremendously in the past 50, 100 years. So when we look at this, is when we're looking over here in 1929, the average woman lived to be 77 years old. Now, if you look at this right here, this middle part right here, or more like the orange, is the pre and perimenopause. So you can see it goes from here all the way up there. And then you have basically this little dot here, which is called menopause. And then up in here, you're basically postmenopausal, which is right here. Now, back in 1929, the average woman here was in menopause for 26 years. So the average woman was in menopause for 26 years. Now let's talk about today in today's society. And now we have a woman living to 89 years old, and they would be in menopause, 43% of their whole entire life. We're here basically 40%. So really what menopause really represents is basically your ovaries, and you stop producing hormones. Now, when you talk about symptoms and you talk about vitality, what the research shows is that hormones are very, very critical for vitality, right? So if you have robust hormones, you're just going to be more youthful because hormones equate to vitality. Now, if you look at this graph right in here, you're going to see that we have menopause up in here, or excuse me, perimenopause, and then down here we have menopause. Now, this is DHEA. This is a hormone. Testosterone is a hormone. Progesterone and estradiol are hormones. And you can see as we age, right? You can see as we age, they start to diminish. And then in here, estradiol right here, really anywhere could be between 40 and 53 years old. Estradiol is, all over the place. It's all up and down. Now, as you'll see here, is as your hormones start to decrease, what happens to your symptoms? Your symptoms start to go up. This is why hormones are very, very critical for basically every single function in your body. And if you want to maintain youthfulness, your body needs a set amount of hormones. Now, when God designed us, right, when we go back, let's go back 500 years, people were not living to the length of time that we are currently living at. So we're living, especially women, right? Especially women are living much longer in this state of condition that they have no hormones. Now, if you look at these symptoms when it comes to ladies, right? So you can experience hot flashes, night sweats, bone loss, mood imbalances, basically female atrophy, irregular bleeding, cognitive decline, low libido, metabolic dysfunction, memory loss, sleep disruption, and blood sugar dysregulation. So these are all the symptoms that can happen when you start to go through menopause and you start to decrease your God-given hormones. Now, what I want to do right now is I want to go over some terminology. There's a lot of confusing words out there, so if we understand the terminology, then you'll just have better certainty of what's actually happening. So the first thing we're going to be covering is what we call estrogen therapy. Now, there's two types of terminology out there. Okay, so the first one here is going to be Premarin. Now, Premarin comes from horse's urine. It's horse estrogen. So it's horse estrogen where we're getting Premarin. And this is basically, that's what women were taking 20 years ago, and they still take it today, even though there's a other viable option, which is the God-given bioidentical hormones, which is what we call estradiol, right? So I'm going to be going over a study where they used Premarin, and that was in 2002. And if you recall, if you're listening to this video, you're probably around my age. I'm 52 years old. So in 2002, this big study came out. Lots of people, ladies, were on hormones. They were on synthetic, which means not God-given, not bioidentical, and they scared a lot of women to this day and doctors from recommending hormones, and in particular, bioidentical hormones. So when we just compare and contrast, Premarin is basically equine, which is basically horse urine, and this product right here, Premarin, contains up to 10 different estrogens. So this is what they were giving ladies in oral form pills. Now, contrast this to estradiol, which is your God-given natural hormone. And you can see the differences in here just when it comes to like the structure right in here. So we have this structure, which is the horse urine. And then we have God-given right in here. Now, a big difference, I mean, there's a lot of big differences, is the Premarin here is actually water soluble. And estradiol, the God-given estradiol, is fat soluble. So what does that tell us? That tells you like man-made is water soluble, God-given is fat soluble. That right there tells you like something's not working right. Something's not working with the laws of Mother Nature. Now you can Google this. This is all available on the internet. But basically here, I just want to go over this thing. Premarin right in here was coined from pregnant Mars, or basically female horses' urine. That's where they get this. And these are all this different right in here. All these things right here. All these things right here are the different estrogens that are in that product. So you can see there's lots of different estrogens that are within this product right in here. And this is just another analogy, is oil and water do not mix, just when we talk about bioidenticals. So bioidentical hormones would be right in here, would be the fat soluble, and this would be man-made, the synthetic. Premarin right in here, that's what we're talking about. Now let's go on to a couple different things here. We're going to compare and contrast this in here, bioidentical to non-bioidentical, or what we call Premarin right here. So estradiol, God-given, these are all the different things right in here that estradiol has been shown to help right in here. Okay, so you can see in here that it's been estradiol can treat vasomotor spasms, which is just a fancy word for saying hot flashes, okay? It can help prevent bone loss. It supports vaginal lubrication, especially when ladies get older. The estrogen is really what keeps the vagina lubricated. So when you start to lose estrogen, basically you can lose that critical like mucous membrane. In here, this is the hippocampus. What's the hippocampus? The hippocampus is a part in your brain, in your memory, that has to do with short-term memory. So when ladies go through menopause, what happens to their memory? It starts to get, where did I park? Where's my keys? They start to do memory problems. It lowers the risk of heart attacks and heart disease. And estradiol is synthesized from plants. So we have to come up with a substance, which is a plant, and then we can change that into the bioidentical, the exact same structure that God put in your body. Now, let's go over Premarin. So this is what it's been shown for, FDA approved right here. Now, what I want to get here from, what I really want to go over is some of these products can have 60 plus different ingredients, right, that have a whole bunch of different molecules and a whole bunch of different estrogens. And these right in here are all these different estrogens that can be in Premarin, which is the oral pill that you're actually taking. Now, let's go over the progesterone therapy terminology. So in here, we have this down in here, which is what we call progestins. So progestin is made by humans in a lab. It mimics progesterone, which your body makes naturally. Like we kind of went over these things. Now, same thing here. Progestin, which is man-made, is water-soluble, right? So look at this. Progesterone, which is right in here, which is God-given, is fat-soluble. So again, we're talking about two different structures. One is man-made, which is water-soluble, but we don't want that. We want God-given, which is fat-soluble. So just based on that chemistry, right, knowing that's one's water-soluble and one's fat-soluble, that should tell you like there's major problems when it comes to progestins and what this does in the human body. Now, in here, what you can see, okay, so in here, you can see the difference. There's the progesterone and progesterone God-given and progestins, which is man-made, and you can look at these different activities within the body. Now, I like this kind of graph right here. It kind of sums everything up. So, so over here, we have the God-given progesterone, and over here, we have the man-made progestins. In here, progestins can cause headaches, ringing, thins the uterine lining, which you definitely don't want, may cause irregular bleeding, increases mood issues, depression, anxiety, a bunch of different things, right? Now, if we look over here at God-given, because we want to focus on that, reduces headaches and migraines, prepares the lining for pregnancy. Now, obviously, if you're going through menopause or you are menopause, you probably don't want to get pregnant. No, but what progesterone does is this is like in the second half of your cycle. So when you get your period, that's day one. The first 14 days would be dominantly estrogen. And then day 15 to day 28 is progesterone. Progesterone is what really gets the lining stable and ready for pregnancy. So I've just kind of summed this up because Premarin, they both start with P's, right? Premarin and progestin, they both start with P, so there can be some confusion on, they both start with P, so it's kind of confusing. So what I've done here is, okay, so what I've tried to do here is just lay it out so it's really simple so you can see that. And the way I remember it is progestin is that stands for progesterone, which again is man-made. And then Premarin, M-A-R-N, M-A-R-I-N stands for a horse. Now, let's go over this study right here. And this really shook the world. And this is 2002. If you can remember back in 2002, lots of women were taking these medications. They were oral, right? So they were the synthetic estrogen and the synthetic progesterone. And then this broke. And at the time, I actually believe that these medications were actually the most abundant prescribed medications for ladies in the United States. So I want to kind of cover this study because since then, there's been dramatic shift in the analysis of the data of the study. And doctors and you probably are afraid to take any bioidentical hormones because of what happened in 2002. And you have that same opinion. This is 23 years later. So my opinion, one of the most devastating things that has happened to ladies in this country is this study that came out in 2002 and didn't have the proper analysis. And I'll go over that. Like if this was a man, right? Men have been getting testosterone for, decades, right? And women just are not privy to the same privilege as men are when it comes to bioidentical hormones, and that's really quite a shame. So here's what happened. Is this study in 2002, there was lots of ladies that were involved in this study. Now, some of the problem was, I'm just going to go over some basic things. The age of these ladies that were in this study was age 50 to 79. That was the average age. Or I'm sorry, that was the range of the participants. The average age is 60 or was 63 years old. Now, why is this so significant? Because 63-year-old women had been probably in menopause for over 10 years. This is where the problem comes in. The average woman in the study was 63 years old. So they've been menopausal. They've had no hormone production for a minimum of 10 years because the average woman goes in menopause at 52. Now, let's say they would have went menopause at 45. That would be an additional 7 years, right? So when it comes to the population really wasn't really proper for when women should start to use bioidentical hormones. And this is where all this new data has come out. So this right here, this summarizes the trial right here. So what we're talking about is, you can see here, if we narrow down the data for ladies that were between 50 and 59, the most ideal sweet spot to start bioidentical hormones is actually when you're in perimenopause, when your hormones are starting to fluctuate, because you can start to level these out. This is what the scientific research is showing right now. So if we isolate these ladies that were in this range, 50 to 59. So we're not looking at the ladies that were 63. We're looking at women that had more recently diminished their hormone production. Now, this right here, if you want to look at this study right here, the link is right down here, right? So if you're listening to this on a podcast, somewhere in this podcast, in the description, there's going to be a link to my website where I'll have this PDF. If you're watching this on YouTube, there's going to be a link to my website where you can get this information. So let me go over this very thoroughly here. So what we have here is we have 10,000 women in this study right here, which is what they call CEE. So this is basically just horse urine, right? This is 10,000 women that just took the horse urine, all right? That just took Premarin. And then they had another study of basically 10,000 women that took basically CEE, which basically stands for the horse urine, Premarin, and PMA. I know there's a lot of terms in here, but this group took the horse estrogens and the synthetic progestins. Up in here, this group just was on estrogens. Now, what I want to show you here is when you look over here, you can see here it says increased risk. And then down here it says decreased risk. Now this line right here, that like yellow line right here, anything above this line indicates that there is significant risk for the individual. And as you can see, none of these things went over this line when we're talking about women that were in the range of 50 to 59. So for example, here in this women that were just taking the synthetic estrogen. Now remember, we're talking synthetic estrogen. We're not talking God-given. Imagine if this was bioidentical, God-given. The stats would probably be a lot better than this. So 11 women had decreased coronary arteries. 5 women had decreased breast cancer. You see the -3 there. 3 women had less colorectal cancer. 8 women had overall less cancers. 16 less women that had overall fractures. 26 less women that had diabetes. And these were the women that were just taking estrogens. Now, there was a couple things that increased. There was 5 women that had deep vein thrombosis and pulmonary embolism. Now, with everything, you got to weigh the pros and cons. So when you look at this actual study and you actually see this, and I would encourage you to go down here and click this reference and go to this reference article. I've read it. I've read the whole thing. It's pretty impressive. Now, let's go down here. So this is basically synthetic estrogens, that's CEE, and PMA, which is the progestins, not God-given. Now look at this. So you can see here there's a few more incidents of things, but nothing crossed this yellow line, right? Nothing crossed this yellow line right here. And you can see how many decreased fractures there were, decreased death from any cause of death, decreased diabetes. So when you look at this study with more precision, you can actually see the women got huge benefits because they're narrowing down the range. You don't want to really start a woman on bioidentical hormones when they're 75 years old. They've already been in menopausal state probably for 65, could be 20 years. So the sooner you start, what the research shows is the sooner you start in perimenopause. So my wife, just assuming the age, she's in perimenopause. That's why I put her on progesterone, DHEA, and pregnenolone and things to support her adrenal glands. And she feels a lot better. It provides what I would say some youthfulness in your body. Now, there are some risk factors involved with this. So in here, HT stands for hormone therapy. So these are the low risk factors. Over here, we have intermediate risk factors, and then we have high risk factors. So the medium and high risk factors, if you have these things in here, you may not want to start hormone replacement therapy, such as diabetes, smoking. HTN right here stands for hypertension. So I put a little key in there, right? Sedentary lifestyle, autoimmune disease, hyperlipidemia, like high cholesterol, high triglycerides. If you have your blood work, you want your triglycerides to be less than 100. If they're over 100, it probably tells you have some kind of abnormal metabolic syndrome starting to happen right here. Metabolic syndrome, high sugar levels, all these things here. And then this is the very high risk is if you've had any kind of past problems with venous thrombosis, pulmonary embolism, congenital heart disease, and down in here, you can see I made this category right here. Anything with atherosclerosis, cardiovascular disease right here, you want to avoid using these bioidentical hormones. And then once again, I just wanted to show you these right here, God-given estradiol, and then you can see progesterone, God-given. And I also came up here just so you can see, like these are not the same, right? So this is God-given right here. You see this structure, and then you can see progestins, man-made. You can see the structure is quite a bit different right there, right? So it's different. It's not the same. It's different. So if we can get something that's bioidentical, let's stick with what's bioidentical. Same thing with up in here. Again, this is estradiol. This is God-given, right? And you can see this right here. This has that S stands for sulfur and sodium. It has a big sulfur and sodium molecule right in here. So in my opinion, that you got to weigh the pros and cons to everything that you do, right? Walking across the street, there's a risk factor. Taking vitamin D, there's a risk factor. There's a risk factor in everything every single day. So these are all the things. If you have any of these things, you definitely should not try and take bioidentical hormones. Now, one of the things with the bioidentical hormones, you can get this over the counter. Like you can get estradiol cream that you rub on. You can get progesterone cream that you rub on. You can get DHEA over the counter. You can take pregnenolone, which is the mother hormone, over the counter. The only thing you cannot get is testosterone without a prescription. And there's ways that you can actually increase your testosterone with certain products. And in other webinars, I will be discussing that. So here's what this study says right in here. I'm just going to read this right in here. So it says, at the end of the day, it says women who take estrogen and synthetic progestins. Now, they're talking about synthetic here. They're not even talking about man-made. This is synthetic. This is synthetic. They're not even talking God-given natural, right? They're talking synthetic hormones. So at the women who take estrogen and synthetic progestins may have a small increased risk of the diagnosis of breast cancer. Okay, what does that mean? What is a small increased risk? So what does that? Because you want to know what that actually is. And this is the critical line. However, this increased risk is of similar magnitude to the risk of breast cancer for women who are overweight or drink 1 or 2 units of alcohol each night. So this is crazy. So taking these synthetic hormones, we're not even talking God-given, is the same thing as being overweight or drinking 2 glasses of wine. And how many women are overweight and drink 2 glasses of wine and don't even think anything of it every single day. Lots and lots of people do that. Why? Because there's just no education on what's actually happening and what the actual truthful information is when it comes for you to restoring your hormones and your vitality. And in my opinion, like, that's really, really important. Okay, so with that being said, remember, is where there's help, there's hope. And if you're looking for some help, reach out because you can get better. There's no need for you to continue to suffer and not be well. Take care. Bye-bye.